Welcome to our series of interviews on the sidelines of the Aero India 2021. How does Atmanirbharta affect the aviation industry? What is the policy framework in place so that Atmanirbharta can be harnessed to the fullest? Well, we caught up with the Secretary of Defense, Dr. Ajay Kumar, and we also spoke to the DRDO Chief and Secretary of Defense Research, Dr. Satish Reddy. Let's listen to what they have to say. We are at Aero India and we are very privileged to have with us Defense Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar. Thanks very much for being with us. First of all, what is when we look at Aero India, it's been going on for 13, this is the 13th time that we're having Aero India. What is the basic purpose of Aero India, sir?
One of the important directions which we had changed a couple of years back, that Aero India or Defense Expo are today focusing to showcase India's capabilities as a hub for defense and aerospace industries. If you see even now, the number of participants, exhibitors who are from India far exceeds the number of participants from abroad. And that is not because the number of participants from abroad have reduced. It is because that today we have the number of people, whether it is big industry, whether it is MSMEs and startups who are participating. This year, despite COVID, we have 540 exhibitors who are today participating in this event. And this event is actually conveying to the world that India is now returning to normal in the new protocols of COVID.
And now we've opened up FDI in defense even further, 74% the automatic route and 100% through government mechanisms. So what does this actually do now in terms of, since we have an ecosystem which is basically feeding the supply chain, we've developed the MSME sector as well. This investment will come in and what does it hope to gain from that?
Yeah, so as you know, India has traditionally been a big importer. The message we are telling to the global OEMs is that rather than we buying from you for those technologies where we do not have capabilities, we would rather have you come here and produce for India, and that is what we will buy, and that's what the increase in FDI conveys.
So we have Atmanirbhar Bharat as the overarching theme, and we can see now even the chiefs and everyone are looking at, as the buyers, we are looking at acquiring products that are made in India. So the question that comes to the common man's mind is, are we in a position to produce that military grade equipment right here in India through design, development and production?
Oh, absolutely. I think there can be no doubt about it. In fact, I would like to go a little further and say, in a large number of items, we actually produce better than the best in the world. There are, however, some items on which we still may not have everything. And that's just fine. I mean, if a small fraction of it is coming from outside, that's fine. But what is important is, today we have the capability. We have notified 101 items where we are confident, the armed forces are confident that what is being produced in India is better than anywhere in the world or as good as anywhere in the world. And this list is continuously evolving, and we will see more items added to the list.
Indeed, sir. When we're talking about evolving, the entire defense security space is evolving, and we now see that there's a lot of influence from artificial intelligence on also from in the UAV space. There's satellites involved. So the realm has changed in a sense. How does Atmanirbhar Bharat fit into this, let's say, this changed environment?
I think this is our strength. Friedman mentioned once that Earth is flat. In innovation today we are seeing it, and especially because the role of digital technologies, you mentioned artificial intelligence, IoT, software itself, analytics, data is increasing tremendously. It's happening across all domains of life, and defense also. Today, these are the most important determinants of a weapon or a platform's capabilities. Now, in software, we in India, as everyone knows, we have tremendous capabilities. We are servicing the best in the world already. And using these capabilities today, we see opportunity to be able to leapfrog the gaps in technologies which we have had in the past and be able to produce. The second big plus that is happening is the startups. Today, startups have acted as a force multiplier and are able to solve problems at significantly lower costs and much shorter time frame. What used to take 5 to 6 years today are getting solved in 12 months. What used to take 100 crores is getting solved for 5 crores, And these numbers may seem astounding, but under the IDEX program, which is basically challenges thrown out to the startups, there are actual solutions which have come with these kind of numbers. So today we have multiple players solving problems in defense and aerospace sector, which has been a huge game changer.
Indeed, sir. Let's talk a little bit about the startups now, because that is a strength of our country, because we have such a lot of young people also, and they're well educated and they have entrepreneurial skills. And this is a cutting edge area. I mean, it's requiring a different level of skills. So, I mean, with these challenges, do you think that that's enough incentive, or perhaps do they need a little bit more of hand-holding and some sort of an environment, an ecosystem that is developed where they can they also feed in to the entire system?
Let me say this, I think the response that we have seen in defense and aerospace from startups has been amazing. Honorable Prime Minister launched this program IDEX in April 2018 in DEF Expo in Chennai. The first challenge was given to them in August 2018. And like I mentioned, in 1 year, they started coming out with solutions. Now we have 4 set of challenges, about 30, 40 problems that have been given. Today we have about 700-800 active startups who are working in the space of defense and aerospace. Why I am focusing on these startups? Because defense and aerospace is little, it's niche, it is difficult, and it requires a little higher level of caliber. Not everyone can do this. And there are 600 to 800 startups who are working focused in this area. So I think startups have done, shown tremendous ability. The question you asked is whether we need to do more. I would think yes. I think government has done, even in this budget, there are a lot of new incentives and areas of ease of doing business for startups, one-man company, and financial and fiscal incentives are there. We need to, from defense side now, we have to also make sure how do we incorporate the products and solutions which are produced by startups in our system. How do we enable them to expose their products to a larger audience? How do we expose them to work with the forces so that they can actually experience the real environment and the constraints of working in a real situation, so that they can configure their products according to that requirement? And this is something on which we are working more and more closely. We have to work, and we need to continuously evolve, create testing. Testing and certification is a very costly affair in defense and aerospace, especially as compared to other sectors. And this is one area, because a lot of testing capabilities have traditionally been with the public sector. We would like to see how to bring these capabilities for the startups more easily available. And I think we are continuously working with this today. Within the government, there is a tremendous willingness to work with startups. We have introduced in the recent Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020, which was launched in October last year, we have introduced a special provision which enables us to buy products which are produced for armed forces by startups. Now this is a great enabling provision which was not there. So like that, there is still need to do more, but I think there's tremendous amount of inclination and interest to work with the startups to solve whatever additional things need to be done.
So there are several defense PSUs, and they are great companies, and they've been producing for the country for a long time. Now that we've opened up the sector, one asks the question, are these in a position to compete or are they, basically going to be sourcing materials from the private sector? Even let's say now we've already made this order for 83 LCA from HAL. This is a big order, and now there's also the 114 multi-role planes that are to be acquired. You know where I'm coming from. Yes, sir.
There are a lot of strengths in the defense PSUs, and however, there is also need to improve on their professional efficiencies and productivity. The introduction of private sector in this domain is helping to raise the standards of both. From government's perspective, our idea is to develop a very healthy ecosystem. And we, on one side, are promoting the private industry as well as strengthening the public sector. Let me give you a small example. We had so far, not been focusing too much on technology development by the public sector units. They were largely seen as the production houses. In 2019, we started an exercise of challenging them to start creating IP within defense PSUs. Most defense PSUs had not had a single patent in all their existence. Case in point is OFB, not a single patent. We put a target of 1,000 patents to be registered in 1 year. Of course, that was a very challenging target, and the whole idea was to challenge them to see if they could do something. And in 2019-20, they did 730 patents filed by the defense PSUs and OFB. Except Bell and HAL, who had previous patents, none of the other PSUs had even single patents. We asked them to start working on their own, without orders from armed forces, on AI-based products, because as you mentioned, artificial intelligence is becoming so much. So we said, in your area of work, see how you can develop some AI product and invest on it, using the capabilities you have. Each one of them have identified and are working, so some products have come out of that. So the point I'm making is, I think it's also, when you elevate the overall level of ecosystem and challenge them to do something new. My own experience has been that defense PSUs have also shown that they can also rise up to the occasion.
So one final question is the market. The market has been largely one buyer, which was the armed forces. Now we are hoping for exports, and of course we are already exporting to friendly countries. But in terms of the components, these have the right to export anywhere across the world.
The defense export is a restricted regime, yes, and it is restricted globally by global systems. India is signatory to MTCR, that is Missile Technology Control Regime, the Australia Group Agreement, to the Wassenaar Agreement, and all these agreements put restrictions on what you can export and to whom you can export. There is responsibility to make sure that you don't give lethal products to undesirable elements, and we are signatory. So we have put in place a mechanism by which these things are ensured in consultation with Ministry of External Affairs, in consultation with Armed Forces, and all the other relevant stakeholders. But at the same time, we have also streamlined the export processes. There is in online export portal now. What permissions used to take sometimes years are today giving in sometimes in 2 days, but other than 15 days at most. So we have streamlined processes. We ensure all the safeguards are observed when export takes place. But as a country, we have shown willingness to export, especially to friendly countries, and active efforts both by industry and by government are being taken to promote defense exports.
On the sidelines of the Aero India 2021, we are very privileged to be here in the DRDO stall with the Chairman of DRDO and Secretary of Defense Research, Dr. Satish Reddy. Thank you, sir, for being with us. So you have so many laboratories under DRDO. Question that comes to mind is, is there synergy? How does are they working in silos? They're all working on core technologies, niche technologies. How does one bring about that integration?
See, firstly, each of the laboratory has got a distinct charter of duties and distinct area of work. And so each laboratory develops what is that required. Now there are some system laboratories. System laboratories required various technologies which have been developed by the laboratories. So there is a clear mechanism of how these laboratories work with each other. Example, you take the aircraft development. Aeronautical Development Agency develops the designs and develops the things. Now it requires multiple technologies. It requires mission computers. There is an establishment called Aeronautical Development Establishment. It develops the mission computer, the software, the simulator, and everything. Actuation system. There is a laboratory in Hyderabad called RCI that develops the actuation system. So the AMCA project will have a system manager working on each for this program. There is a program director, there are projects, their funding is given, projects are given to all those. So when a program director reviews, all these program managers become part of it. They all work. He reviews all the work. He goes to the laboratories, he reviews. I review. Then all these laboratory directors also come into it. And that's how there is a clear-cut working mechanism. They all work actually, the whole DRDO in this works like a single laboratory. As I said, the aircraft, particular aircraft, because we are standing with the aircraft, I'm saying, there are many work centers in the country, not just DRDO labs alone. There are CSIR laboratories, there are ISRO-related laboratories like NAL and all that. We work with them, academic institutes, then industry. So these are all the mechanisms, well-established mechanisms, how you work, and without any bureaucratic delays.
Indeed, and when we take collaborations to the international level, because that's the next level, how does that work? I mean, we are already working with several countries and
international collaborations are a little different in nature working. There are, one is a co-development or a joint development with the international collaboration. That is one of the ways. Second is procurement from them, along with some details, technical specifications and software and things like that. Example, you take the missile development of MRSAM. It's a joint venture between Israel and India. Similarly, BrahMos, it's a joint development between DRDO and NPO in Russia. So the work packages are very clearly defined. Who develops what system? Like BrahMos, the complete avionics is developed by DRDO. The whole vehicle, structure, engine, everything is NPO. So, and this work packages, that's how well defined things, and then we work together as per that and then make it.
So we are very much focused on Atmanirbharta, and obviously, you know, you'll be playing a significant role. DRDO is the key, laboratory for that. Now we have the LCA Mk2 Mark II. Then we have also the AMCA, as you were talking. These aircrafts are the aircrafts which are of the near future, isn't it? How they been? What's their development stage right now?
Firstly, DRDO works for Atmanirbharta of this country. Atmanirbharta, when Honorable Prime Minister has given this call, which is the greatest call to this nation as far as science and technology is concerned, meaning is that you should have the design capability, you should have the development capability, and also you should have the manufacturing and production capability in the country. So that means you should have the design know-how and know-why with you. That is the knowledge base you should have. See, over about 3 decades in the development of LCA Mark I, we have actually created the ecosystem in the country, created the knowledge base in the country. There are so many work centers, so many R&D organizations, so many academic institutes, so many professors, everyone has worked who has contributed. This is what is called knowledge base and ecosystem. Having got developed over the 3 decades from almost like zero, today we have so many industries working with us. And now when I have to develop LCA Mark II, it is not like earlier what we have developed LCA Mark I. You have the knowledge base, so the cycle becomes very fast. You have the maturity, you have the capability, you have the testing tools, you have the infrastructure, and there is an industry which you want, I want this item, who will develop it fast and give it to you.
So the ecosystem feeds into it very well, but also the aspect of the components being Indian. I mean, how much is that in LCA Mark II as
right
well
now,
as AMCA?
If you look at it, LCA presently Mark I, what we it is about 63% is indigenous content. And so from there onwards, gradually the percentage is increasing. When we actually it comes and we are also trying to produce the engine also in the country, then we go much beyond 80% also. So that is how we are progressively increasing the indigenous content. Whereas some other mature technologies you take today, missiles or radars, we are more than 90% indigenous content in that.
There we've already established ourselves.
Very well.
Now this is
Here
with
also
stealth. This
actually-
aircraft is stealth. This is
also
our
no
first stealth
problem.
aircraft.
First of the stealth aircraft. This is the 5th generation aircraft. Very few nations in the world which have developed this, and we have taken up this challenge, and we are very confident that this system will be able to develop on schedule.
Indeed. And how does it compete with aircrafts in the field?
There are very few nations,
Very few.
US, China, Russia, and these are the nations which have developed the 5+ generation aircrafts, and we are also going to develop, and we stand as one of the few nations in the world who have 5+
Is there a
generation.
timeline for when we can see it?
We will have a very short time frame, and international standards wise also will be actually much quicker than that. That's what we are expecting. There are dedicated teams which have been created. The design work is going on very seriously.
Indeed, and when we talk about the next frontier in warfare, it's it's moved space, but it's also UAVs, right? I mean, everything is unmanned to a large extent. To what extent are we, what's our capabilities as far as UAVs are concerned?
As far as the UAVs is concerned, there are many things. One is micro and nano UAVs, or drones, what you call it. Then you have UAVs, which are lighter, smaller, which are called mini UAVs. There are UAVs which are MALE, that is medium altitude long endurance aircraft. Then there are something called HALE, which are high altitude long endurance aircrafts. Now when you come to the micro UAVs or drones, the industry is playing a major role. Lots of industries have come in the country, and they are able to produce them, they are able to give us, we are able to work with them, we are able to give our requirements, we are able to work together and make those micro UAVs. And then coming to mini UAVs, we have the Rustum 1, which has a good payload capability, which has about 10 hours endurance, which has about flying at 15,000 feet altitude, and that is one of the UAVs which has been developed and that is working, and you can see here in the stalls it is put it here also. Then the next one what we have is Rustum 2. Rustum 2 is about 27 to 30,000 feet altitude, which is a male UAV, and it has an endurance of roughly about 20 to 24 hours. I am sure that in the coming about 2 to 3 months, we will be able to achieve all these parameters. So, after that, I say right from micro, mini to male, we have the complete capabilities in the country, and we will be able to produce them.
And going back to aircraft especially, we've developed the Kaveri engine. How effective is this going to be, and how much will it be used in all our aircrafts in the future? To build,
Again, I say Kaveri is given the technological base to us. The Kaveri has been developed for the LCA, but then when you are developing the engine, the specifications of LCA and configuration has changed, and then the Kaveri engine has fallen short of the requirements of the power. And so Kaveri, we are using it as a dry engine for other applications. Okay, so that has given the knowledge and technological base. Now when you look at AMCA, it calls for about 110 kilonewtons engine, and wherein the country requires some of the technologies, and so we are trying to look for a collaboration with somebody where that technological gap what is there, we try to take it from them, and it is a jointly developed engine which will be used. So my feeling is in the next about 6 to 7 years, we should be able to develop this engine in the country.
Indeed, there's a lot more pressure on DRDO and labs, especially in the defense field, when there is threat perception increase, and we know that we are having tensions with China. We know that there is tensions on our western border. What kind of impetus or pressure does it put on DRDO, and how are we adapting to technologies in this
I don't call
situation?
it as pressure, but it is our responsibility to respond to the situation in the tense situations. And we work very closely with the armed forces. We actually interact with even the soldier who is there in the very frontier areas, and the requirements we take it up and we try to develop them overnight and try to provide them all those things. Even today, many things which are required in the high altitude areas and very low temperature conditions in these winters, whatever are required, we have worked with them and try to supply many of those things which are required for the soldier. And along with that, many advanced technologies and systems also we try to give, and we are giving it to them.
The future is, we're already in satellites. I mean, there are anti-satellites. These are concerns about satellites and how they can be misused. Is DRDO involved with that kind of research?
As you know that DRDO has developed the anti-satellite mission. The mission Shakti has been successfully demonstrated on March 27th, 2019. And this is the fourth nation which has developed such technology. This is only but it is a technology demonstration to show it to the world that India has such technological capabilities in this type of very critical technologies, and we could show it. And so we have the necessary technological base. If the nation requires such technologies or space technologies and the government decides, then we can take it up.
One more question about funding, because I mean, you're a government organization, but industry is now getting into this field, and they will probably also have to get their own research going. In that context, do they have to tie up with DRDO, or what? Or would you see how
there are multiple ways of working with the industry, and a good question what you have asked. How do you support industry? It is our primary duty to support and bring up the industry, not just in the production, and also the development, and if possible in the research in the niche areas. So we have brought up a new concept called DCPP, Development Cum Production Partner. Right at the beginning of a project, when we are taking up a development project, we take industry as a partner. So we work together in that particular project for the development and go through the development, and industry automatically has absorbed entire technology working together with us, and they become equal to us, and automatically the production phase takes on. This is one thing. Second, we have also brought in many schemes, funding schemes for promoting industry in research in industry. So there is a scheme called Technology Development Funding, where an industry comes out with a good concept for design and development of a particular technology or a product which will be useful for the defense forces of the country, then we fund them up to 10 crore rupees. So this is the open scheme, Technology Development Fund. We have already funded about 25 industries today, and we are going to fund in a big way. And the aim is that, first of all the things which are importing today, we want to get it indigenized here through the industry. And then whatever the industry is capable, and suo motu proposal they give, ideas we give it to them, these are the technology areas. And whenever they come, we are going to support them. And the startups and youth, also we are coming out with many schemes to support them, fund them, and also promote their ideas through various incubation centers and startups and possible academic institutes in a big way.
That is a great advertisement for Atmanirbharta. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us on Doordarshan.
All the best.